Welcome to A More Beautiful World podcast with Susan Renee, a place for those of us with the desire to expand our consciousness, tap into higher vibrations of love, and to connect into a community where together we can make the world a more beautiful place. I'm so eager to share with you what I've learned on my journey in discovering how we're all connected and how what we do for one, we do for us all. Here, I'll be sharing my own experiences, knowledge, and expertise for how you can heal, transform, and ascend your being so that together we can create the more beautiful world we all know is possible. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of A More Beautiful World. And in this episode, I am taking you through some ways to become more peaceful, loving, and kind. I feel we can all agree the world needs more peace, more love, and more kindness. And it really begins with each one of us finding that within ourselves. And not only do we need to find that within ourselves, we need to operate in a way that we bring those vibrations out into the world and truly make this a more beautiful world for us all. So today I'll be sharing with you some ways for you to transmute feelings like anger and pain and hatred into higher vibrations to become a beacon of peace, of love, and of kindness as you navigate your journey. I'll also be sharing today some practices and mindset shifts that you can work on to make that happen. So if you are eager to make your inner world a more peaceful, loving, and kind environment and see that reflected in the world around you, then this episode is for you. Let me start off today by asking you a few questions. Let's just drop in and kind of get our awareness going around this topic. So how well do you feel that you operate out of peace, love, and kindness? How well do you give yourself love and kindness, or how often? And how well do you offer love and kindness to others? When is the last time that you truly felt peaceful or loving or kind? So as you ruminate on those questions and do a little bit of self-reflection, I want to share a quote that really resonated with me on this topic as I was getting ready for this episode. And it is a quote from the Dalai Lama. And the quote is this: "When we feel love and kindness toward others, it not only makes others feel loved and cared for, but it helps us also to develop inner happiness and peace." So I love this quote because I do feel, peace, love, kindness. It starts from within us, but also as we offer it out into the world, it comes back and fuels us from within. So it's this beautiful synergistic momentum of, upward energy. Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to build that both from within and without today. However, before we dive into all of that, I want to quick share how this episode really came into my intuition as I create episodes and really why I'm sharing it with you all today. So I've been traveling quite a bit this year and really just meeting a lot of new people, having a lot of new experiences, being in a lot of different places around our country and also outside of the country. But with that, one thing that I've really noticed, as I've been moving around a lot, I've noticed way too consistently that, people really are super addicted to talking about their problems, to talking about things that they hate, to saying unkind things, about others and being super judgmental. And there's almost this this essence of people priding themselves on how chaotic and full of conflict their life is. And as I've noticed that, as I've gone through this year, I've been asking myself, how did we ever get into a place where that was normal and we accepted that? And that's what we focused on. And I don't know. I personally feel like that isn't normal. I feel like we have so much more opportunity to shift that and to move into the space of being more peaceful, more loving, more kind, and bringing that out into the world. So I could go on and on about my thoughts about why that's happened, but I feel like because you're here listening to this episode or watching this episode, I really want to talk more about how we shift that, how we can get out of that place and we can become more peaceful, more loving, and more kind, both with ourselves and also in sharing that with the world around us. So as we start and, really dig into the meat of this podcast, I feel it's important that we really tap into the knowing of how connected we all are. This is at the essence and core of every episode I record because everything and everyone is connected. Right? We're connected to each other. We're connected to everything, from humans being connected to the earth and all of us being connected to the rivers, the trees, the birds, the animals, the oceans, the mountains, right? I could go on, but we're all one and the same, which again is why I'm always saying in this podcast, what we do for one, we do for us all. Because we all are connected. So as one of us or one thing, raises its vibration, it brings up the vibration of the collective, which is why I feel it's such an important time to be doing this work, to really help the transition of raising the vibration of our planet in this time of ascension, that we're all going through. So with that, each connection and interaction that you have with anyone or anything, be it with your partner, your sibling, your child, your pet, or even that tree in your backyard, right? You are actually connecting and interacting with yourself. Okay, so really think about that. Everything, every being, everyone, right, that you are interacting with is an interaction with yourself. And so the energy that you are giving to that connection, that interaction, or, how you consciously or are unconsciously trying to make that person or that thing feel, it really says a lot about what is going on within you. So it's interesting. I do feel, as I mentioned before, all of the people that I've interacted with this year who are kind of spewing pain and hatred and, talking about all the problems in their life, I see them as having a lot of chaos and pain and hatred toward themselves. All of that is within because it's coming out of them. So again, what energy you're giving to these connections really says a lot about what's going on within you. So as we're on the journey, to heal, to transform, to ascend, to, alleviate anxiety, to move past trauma, to release trauma, I think it's important to remember that each connection, each interaction that we have is actually an opportunity to interact with ourselves. It's an opportunity to fall in love. It's this beautiful experience that we can have and create into what I've heard in another podcast called this concept of eros. And, this isn't just the word eros can sometimes have a connotation of just a physical connection or some erotic desire. That's not the word I'm representing here. But when I speak of eros, it's really this opportunity to connect with someone, with something intimately, in body, mind, and spirit, with each interaction. Because as you do that, you're literally connecting more deeply with yourself. And if you have these opportunities to fall in love with other things, other beings, right, you're literally falling more deeply in love with yourself. which is creating more peace, more kindness in your being. So, could probably do a whole episode on that. But for this episode, right, how do you get to a place where you feel that connection, right? And how can you get to a place where you can show up in every interaction with the feelings of peace, of love, and kindness, and really connect into this concept of eros, and having this deep, intimate connection with everything and everyone around you? I believe it's possible because I've accessed that myself. And I know it's possible for you too. So let me share what I feel has helped me in getting there. And again, how I know that you can get there too. So first and foremost, I want to begin by talking about desire. I've spoken about this in previous podcasts, and it's worth mentioning here again, because it applies. And that is, if you truly want to become more peaceful, more loving, more kind, you have to have a burning desire to do so. Without that, you aren't going to give this your full attention, or, have a full intention, and it just won't happen. So as we are diving in, more deeply into this episode, I invite you to honestly ask yourself if you truly want to be more peaceful, more loving, and more kind. And hopefully that answer is a yes. And that gets you excited about moving through the next parts of this episode. But that has to be there, because if you really don't care if you're peaceful, loving, or kind, if you don't care about feeling those feelings, then why bother, right? But if that was a yes for you, then what is next in this process is, I invite you to begin to expand your awareness. We kind of started the episode with me asking you some of those questions. So take a step back and really become the witness in your life. And notice how you are speaking to others, and also how you are speaking to yourself. As you do this, right, do let go of the judgment, and just observe with compassion and with grace for yourself, because there is no right or wrong. However it is, really, it just is. All right. So the key here is you have to have the awareness around what is happening right now in order to identify where you can do some work and where you do have opportunities to grow. So again, think about some of those questions. Do you feel you operate more out of peace, love, and kindness? Do you operate more out of pain, anger, hatred? When have you been offering some of those energies to yourself, to others? Do you look back and kind of see maybe there's some opportunities for growth there? So expand your awareness, maybe take it to a journaling exercise, maybe just sit with it in a meditation, but get honest with yourself and where you're at, and really think about where you do have opportunities to be more peaceful, more loving, and more kind with yourself and with others. And so once you've done that and you have identified these areas where you want to do some work and you want to grow, then it's time to set an intention. So it was well over 10 years ago now. Honestly, don't know exactly how many years ago. But let's say 10 to 12 years ago, I became certified in Reiki. And one of the morning prayers and mantras that they brought in for our Reiki practice that I learned then and I still use, in this current day. One of the little mantras, prayers is this. I want to share this with you. Just for today, I will not worry. I will not be angry. I will be grateful. I will do my work diligently, and I will be peaceful, loving, and kind. So again, a very simple and a very powerful intention. So again, once you have this expanded awareness, You know what you want to do. We've got to set an intention. So it can be, an intention that's a little more broad, like I just shared, just for today, I will not worry. I will not be angry. I will be grateful. I will do my work diligently, and I will be peaceful, loving, and kind. So if that resonates with you, please feel free to use it. And again, you can use something more broad like that, or you can set more specific intentions. It depends on what you've identified as you are becoming aware of where you can grow and where you can do more work here. So maybe your intention that you set is something more like, I want to be more loving and kind to my partner and create more peace and love in our relationship. Maybe it's something like, I want to be more peaceful, loving, and kind to others at work. Or I want to be more peaceful, loving, and kind to others out in the world. Maybe you want to be more loving and kind to your friends and create more peaceful relationships. Whatever resonates the most with your heart is the right intention for you. And you'll know it if you do your diligence and kind of expanding your awareness and identifying where you want to do some work and where you want to grow. Okay, so we've got the burning desire, right? We've expanded our awareness, and you've got your intention. As you do that, then you are ripe for bringing in some practices to start making changes. And let me tell you, there are so many options here, and I'm not going to be able to cover them all in this episode. Though I have chosen to share with you today the practices that I have found most powerful for both myself and in working with clients in this space. And not only have they been powerful and very helpful, in growing and changing, I also feel they're pretty easy to begin to implement. So as we talk about practices, I want to share this really goes two ways. There are practices that you can do for others in ways that you're showing up and expressing, out into the world. And there's also things you can do for yourself as we work to become more peaceful, more loving, and kind. So I'm going to cover both sides of that today. And again, I want to bring in the Dalai Lama quote again here, which was, when we feel love and kindness toward others, it not only makes others feel loved and cared for, but it helps us also to develop inner happiness and peace. And so with the Dalai Lama's quote there, I want to begin talking about cultivating love and kindness toward others. Because I do feel so many of us are our own worst critics, and it can often be easier to begin your practice of being more peaceful, more loving, and more kind outwardly than inwardly. And just know, as you practice it outwardly, it's going to start to reflect within as well. So let's talk about ways, again, that we can cultivate love and kindness toward others and help us develop our inner peace and happiness from that side of it. So my first and maybe one of my favorite practices in this space is doing some random acts of kindness. Now, I know maybe that sounds a little cliche, maybe it sounds like too simple, but really, when is the last time you've been doing random acts of kindness? While it is kind of easy and simple, it's often not practiced. So there are hundreds, thousands of ways to express a random act of kindness. And really what this is, if you're unfamiliar with it, it is going out into the world and randomly being kind to someone and displaying a kind act. So what are some examples of that? Maybe you hold the door for someone as you're coming in or out of a building. Maybe it's bringing dinner over to a friend unexpectedly that's going through a hard time. It could be giving a compliment to a stranger or to a loved one. It could be letting someone go in front of you in line when you have a cart full of groceries and they have 2 items, so they don't have to wait for you. Maybe it's slowing down when you're on the highway and letting that car in front of you merge in. It could be randomly offering help to someone who looks lost. It can be taking a photo when you're out, traveling and sightseeing, taking a photo for a family who's trying to get their whole crew in, on a selfie. Um, Maybe it's even doing something kind for Mother Earth and picking up a random piece of litter that you see in a parking lot or on a trail. It can be offering a smile to someone who looks like they're having a down day. Again, I can go on and on and on random acts of kindness, but I hope you get the point. If you want to be more peaceful, loving, and kind, doing acts of kindness is a beautiful way to make that happen and to bring in that energy. So I feel this is the easiest one. It is very affordable because it's free. It doesn't cost you anything unless you're buying something for someone. But bring in some random acts of kindness. And again, if you really like this one of all the practices, maybe set a goal for yourself to do one a day or a couple a week, whatever resonates most with you. But I believe random acts of kindness is one of the easiest and most important practices for becoming more peaceful, more loving, and kind. So, practice number 2 is express your love. Again, I know this sounds simple, but it is profound. Oftentimes, the simple answers are the most profound. I feel all too often like we keep our feelings to ourselves, when we could be sharing our feelings with others. There is no need to bottle them up. It is okay to express your truth. And especially when your truth is love. It's so common, I feel like, with the emotion of love that we guard ourselves, we guard our hearts, and we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to get hurt, right? But as with all of the feelings, your love needs to be expressed. You need to get that love out into the world. So how do we do that? Tell someone what they mean to you. Tell someone you love them. Saying I love you is so simple and yet so powerful. Maybe in expressing your love, it can be more of just listening to someone and holding space for them, without inserting your opinion. Maybe expressing your love comes through a random act of kindness, right? You can express your love by buying a gift for someone, especially if it's unexpected, right? It's not for a birthday or a holiday. Just, hey, I saw this, thought of you, here's a gift, right? That really shows love. You can express your love so much with physical touch. And that doesn't just have to, be sexual, interactions, with a partner. Physical touch can be, hugging, right? A kiss on the cheek, right? Holding someone's hand. Physical touch is a beautiful way to express your love. And even you can express love by just being present with someone. As you are spending time with a loved one, put your phone down, stop scrolling, and just be present with them. Offer them eye contact, get close to them. Use your body language to express that you're here, you're present, and you are in love with the moment. Okay. So again, expressing your love isn't just about saying, I love you. It's taking actions that support that expression of love. And I think that is so important as we look, again, to be more peaceful, more loving, and more kind. So right kind of with the expression of love, the next practice I want to share with you is to speak with love. Gosh, again, how often are we cutting people down and saying no and criticizing and shaming others, which is not in the higher vibrations, when instead we could be more encouraging. We could be more compassionate, more understanding, so as you speak with love, encourage others, keep going. I see you. I love you, right? You've got this. Be compassionate. Like, I understand where you're at. I know how this must feel. I'm here for you, right? Offer words of affirmation. Things like, you are powerful. I love how confident you are. I see the progress you're making, and I'm really proud of you. I love that you held space for me the other day. I appreciate you being in my life. I love all that you do for me. I love the way you take care of yourself. Whatever it is, speak with love. Often I encourage people to put a lens on this. Speak as if you're speaking to a young child. Most people will speak with love to children or to animals. So sometimes that can help you in some of the interactions that might feel more difficult. But again, speak with more love. So the last kind of outwardly practice I want to talk about here is talking more about your joys instead of your burdens. So I feel like this really gets to the peaceful part of our conversation today. So as I say, talk more about your joys instead of your burdens. Let me be clear. I am not saying we spiritually bypass all of the things in life that feel hard or difficult or like a struggle. But I do look at this in kind of two ways. So first, I'm going to say I encourage all of you to spend more time talking about your joys, because too many folks out there are addicted to complaining about their life. I encourage you to remember it is a blessing that you are alive, that you are a spiritual being in a human body, and you get to experience this life on this planet. And so tap into that joy in living and share it and talk about it. Share what's good. And then the kind of reverse side of this coin is that, when burdens and struggles arise, again, I'm not saying just spiritually bypass them and be like, oh no, everything's fine. No. And instead, though, of just complaining about how bad you've got it or how hard it is, can you find the silver lining, right? Is there a lesson or blessing coming out of it that you can talk about, right? And also with that, even as you're going through a hard or difficult time, instead of just complaining about it, become solution oriented and focus on finding solutions to these problems, to these difficulties, right? Because being solution oriented really is key to help you transform some of these burdens into more of a joy, because it will help you find the lesson and see the blessings as you go through it and come out of it. So focus on speaking, again, more positively. Talk about the joys, even if there are burdens. Be solution oriented about them. Now, all of those aforementioned practices, they will help you create your own inner happiness, your own inner peace, right? More self-love. And it's important to do that work. But I also know we have to work from within as well. And as I mentioned, I feel like tackling this from both sides, both from within and how we express out into the world, is really what will accelerate you becoming more peaceful, more loving, and more kind. So for yourself, right? We've talked about all the ways in which you're coming out into the world. Now for yourself, I'm going to keep this part pretty simple. For yourself to become more peaceful, loving, and kind, you need some form of consistent self-care. Building in a consistent, sacred self-care routine that becomes a non-negotiable in your life is the best way you can show yourself love and kindness and cultivate more peace, more love in your life. That's just it. It really does help you create so much harmony in your life by having a self-care routine. And this also will strengthen your ability to offer love, to offer kindness, to offer a more peaceful presence to others. So if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, which we are in episode 40, so thank you. Quick shout out to those of you who've been listening to all the episodes. Um, you know, over the last 40 episodes, I've talked up and down about self-care and how important it is, because it really is mission critical to making progress and positive changes in your life. So for self-care, when it comes to, cultivating the peace, the love, the kindness, I always am going to say one of the best practices is meditation. Though I will say there are plenty more in this space. And if you are still lacking in your self care routine, or even just feeling ready to cultivate a self care routine, if it's like you're listening to this episode, you're like, hell yes, Susan, it is finally time. Let's do this. Make sure you go into the episode description below and get my free self care guide, because I have in there over 50 plus self care ideas. That you can implement, but also tips for how to create a self-care routine that is unique and sacred for you. So go get that guide if you haven't already. But besides meditation, which again, I can probably apply to anything in life and making improvements, there are other self-care practices I feel that are noteworthy that I want to kind of wrap up this episode with. So in the context of cultivating more peaceful, loving, and kind energies, I think it's really important to take care of your physical body, with some nutrition, right? With some stretching, with some movement, with getting massages, with getting that sunshine on your skin. All very loving things you can do, for your physical body. Also, having some orgasms. Okay, we don't talk about it that often, but that is a super loving and kind thing you can do for yourself. And I'm going to almost guarantee it's going to make you feel more peaceful too. So whether you have a partner and you can have orgasms with your partner, or you need to, cultivate a self-pleasure practice for orgasms, that is a beautiful way, really a beautiful self-care practice to bring in. You can do some gratitude or what's good journaling, for your self-care routine. You can write yourself a love letter, recite daily positive affirmations. You can do more to celebrate your accomplishments, get out into nature, and even practice forgiveness, for yourself. All of those things, I feel, again, are noteworthy practices in becoming more peaceful, loving, and kind in this space. But again, self-care is so specific to where you are at and where you want to go. So again, grab the guide for more help on creating your own unique self-care routine, or even, use the link below to grab a clarity call with me, and I can help you create a self-care routine, and we can create that together. But okay, so to recap quickly. If you want to be more peaceful, more loving, and kind, remember it does begin with having a burning desire to do so. Once you have that, work on expanding your awareness with where you're at and where you want to go, and then set an intention that you're going to make it happen. Once you have that, right? You have your desire, you have your expanded awareness, you've got your intention set, then bring in some of the practices I shared today. Bring in practices you can use to make others feel loved and cared for. And also bring in some self-care practices and create that sacred self-care routine for yourself so you can feel more loved and cared for as well. And of course, coming at this from both sides, both what you're doing for others as well as what you do for yourself, this is going to create this beautiful momentum in your life to build more peace, more love, and more kindness. And as always, as you stay consistent with that energy is going to build and build over time, which is so beautiful. So I trust if you have a clear intention and you bring in some of these practices that I shared in this episode, you are going to become more peaceful, more loving, and more kind in no time at all. Because remember, tribe, this is all about making the world a more beautiful place. And that begins with you. What we do for one, we do for us all. And as we better ourselves, we beautify this world. So I hope you found this episode helpful. And I really appreciate you being on the journey with me to heal, to transform, and to ascend so we can truly make this a more beautiful world. As always, if you need support on your journey to becoming more peaceful, more loving, and more kind, or anything else, grab your free clarity call with me at the link below, because I would be so honored to guide you on your journey as you expand your awareness and expand your consciousness, and as you work to heal from anxiety and from trauma. So that is all for today, tribe. Until next time, mwah, much love to you all. Hey, tribe. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this podcast, make sure to like the video below and then click subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, I've got lots of free resources available to you to support your healing, transformation, and ascension so you can help in making this a more beautiful world for us all. Make sure you check them out in the description below. Thanks again for tuning in, tribe. And until next time, much love to you all.